Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're looking at something pretty fascinating. The relationship or potential relationship between ancient Vedanta and contemporary analytical idealism.
It is a fascinating intersection. We've got these source materials that touch on both, and I think our goal really is to explore how they might, speak to each other.
Exactly. They seem so different on the surface, don't they? Vedanta from ancient spiritual texts, analytical idealism from modern philosophy, logic, even neuroscience.
Right, one focused on liberation through self-knowledge, the other tackling the hard problem of consciousness in a very, contemporary way. But the connections, as we'll see, can be quite surprising.
Okay, so our mission then is to see how Vedanta's core ideas might fit or be interpreted using the concepts from analytical idealism. Where should we start? Maybe with Vedanta itself.
Sounds good. So fundamentally, Vedanta is about achieving absolute freedom, moksha. And that comes through knowledge, no?
Right, but knowledge of what and freedom from what?
Good questions. Freedom from bondage. And Vedanta sees bondage as stemming from things like karma, our past actions, and ragadisha, our attachments and aversions, our likes and dislikes.
And these arise from
Avidya, or ajnana. Basically, a fundamental ignorance about the true nature of reality.
Okay, so ignorance is the root problem.
Exactly. And the solution, the way to liberation, is Brahmanjana, the direct knowledge or realization of Brahman.
Brahman. Okay, let's unpack that. The sources describe it as the ultimate reality, right? Absolute existence, knowledge, bliss, Sat Chitananda.
Precisely. It's not a being, but being itself, the ground of everything.
And here's a crucial bit, I think. Vedanta says the world we see. It's not ultimately real in the way it appears. It's like an appearance on Brahman.
That's the idea of Adhyaropa superimposition. The universe, with all its objects and distinctions, is seen as superimposed onto the non-dual reality of Brahman.
Like mistaking a rope for a snake in the dark.
Yeah.
The snake is the superimposition.
A classic analogy, yes. And just as you realize the snake was never really there, only the rope, Vedanta uses a method called apavada yukti negation to dissolve the appearance and realize that everything is Brahman.
Okay, so the multiplicity we experience is, in a sense, illusory compared to the underlying unity.
Illusion might be too strong a word sometimes. Maybe appearance is better. It's real in a relative sense, but not ultimately real. The ultimate reality is Brahman.
Got it. And where does the individual, the I, fit in? That's Atman, right?
Yes, Atman is the individual self or soul, but the core teaching, the revolutionary idea, is that Atman is Brahman. They aren't separate. Your innermost self is identical to the ultimate reality.
Ah, so that's where those famous Mahavakyas, the great sayings, come in, like, Aham Brahmasmi.
Exactly. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. Meaning you, the individual Atman, are that Brahman.
And I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this indeed is Brahman. They really hammer home that non-dual point.
They do. They're pointers meant to guide the mind towards that direct realization of unity.
Vedanta uses a lot of illustrations, these Nyayas, to explain these abstract ideas. We mentioned the rope snake. What about the mirage? Mrigatrishna Nyaya.
Right, the deer chasing water in the desert that isn't really there. It illustrates how we chase fleeting, illusory, worldly pleasures, the mirage, born from ignorance, instead of seeking the true, permanent reality, Brahman.
It highlights the falsity of the perceived world, or at least its deceptive nature.
Precisely. And then there's the mother of pearl mistaken for silver Shaktira Jathanaya.
Ah, another superimposition example.
Yes. We project the idea and value of silver onto the shell. The shell is real. The silver is the projection. It shows how we superimpose our concepts and desires onto the underlying reality.
What about butter and milk? That's an interesting one.
It illustrates omnipresence. Just as butter pervades all the milk but isn't visible until churned, Brahman pervades everything but isn't immediately perceptible to the senses. It's hidden within the essence.
Subtle yet everywhere. Okay, and the two birds.
Ah, yes. Two birds on the same tree. One bird, the jiva, or individual soul, is busy eating the fruits, experiencing the results of actions, pleasure, and pain. The other bird, the Paramatman, or supreme self, just watches, detached, a witness.
So it suggests this witness consciousness is also present within us alongside the experiencing self.
That's the implication, a deeper, uninvolved awareness.
Now, you mentioned avidya, ignorant, but there's also maya. How does that fit in? Is it just illusion?
Maya is often translated as illusion, but it's more complex. It's Brahman's power, the power that creates the appearance of the universe. Interestingly, the sources mention it has two aspects: vidya, which is knowledge, and avidya, ignorance.
So Maya isn't just negative, it's the power that both conceals Brahman and potentially reveals it.
You could say that. Avidya binds us through ignorance, making us identify with the appearance. Vidya, the discriminative knowledge cultivated through Vedantic practice, can help pierce that veil.
Okay, and briefly, the sources also mention the three states of consciousness: waking, jagrat, dreaming, svapna, deep sleep, sushupti.
Yes, and the idea is that the true self, Atman Brahman, underlies and witnesses all three states. It's the constant consciousness, the Sat Chidananda, that persists through them.
And finally, there's a specific way to understand Tat Tvam Asi, right? Something about literal versus implied meaning.
Yes, understanding the Mahavakyas often involves moving beyond the literal meaning, the Vachyartha, to the implied meaning, the Lakshyartha.
How does that work for Tat Tvam Asi?
Well, that literally might refer to Ishvara, the cosmic lord, with attributes like omniscience, and thou refers to the jiva, the individual soul with limitations like little knowledge. They seem opposite.
Right.
So a specific method called Jahada Jahalakshana or Bhaga Chagalakshana is used. You discard the contradictory attributes, Ishvara's omniscience and the jiva's limitations, and focus on what's common.
Which is?
Pure consciousness, the underlying intelligence or awareness. That underlying consciousness is Brahman. So the implied meaning is that the essential reality of both the cosmic and the individual is the same, Brahman.
Okay, that's a helpful clarification. It's about finding the common ground, the essence.
Exactly.
Right, so that gives us a solid grounding in some key Vedantic ideas. Now let's pivot to analytical idealism. How do the sources define this?
Well, analytical idealism is presented as a contemporary metaphysics that takes phenomenal consciousness subjective experience as the only truly irreducible thing in nature. It's fundamental.
So experience first, which is quite different from standard physicalism.
Very different. Mainstream physicalism usually starts with matter, physical stuff described by physics as fundamental, and then it faces the really tough challenge, Chalmers' hard problem, of explaining how subjective feeling, consciousness, arises from non-conscious physical processes.
Yeah. How does brain activity become the feeling of redness or the taste of chocolate?
Exactly. Analytical idealism flips it. It says experience isn't emergent, it is fundamental. The physical world, then, isn't the base reality, but is somehow derived from or is an appearance of consciousness.
An appearance.
Yeah.
Like that dashboard of dials idea mentioned.
Precisely. The physical world we interact with is like a user interface. It represents underlying conscious processes, but it isn't the underlying reality itself. It's what consciousness looks like from a certain point of view.
And analytical idealists sometimes bring in quantum physics here.
They do. Things like Bell's theorem, aspects experiments, Zeilinger's work. They challenge the idea that physical objects have definite properties independent of observation.
So the properties might not exist until measured or observed.
That's one interpretation that some analytical idealists find supportive. It suggests reality might be more observer-dependent, more connected to consciousness than classical physics assumed.
This leads to the idea of a cosmic conscious, doesn't it?
Yes. Instead of building consciousness from little bits, like panpsychism tries to do, analytical idealism often proposes that reality is, fundamentally, one vast unified field of consciousness.
Cosmic consciousness. And where do we, as individuals, fit in?
The idea is that individual minds, individual conscious selves like us, are dissociated alters within this cosmic mind.
Alters. Like in dissociative identity disorder, DID.
Exactly like that, but on a cosmic scale. Just as a person with DID has multiple distinct identities or alters coexisting within one psyche, the universe might consist of countless dissociated conscious perspectives within one fundamental consciousness.
Wow, that's a big idea. Is there any evidence suggesting dissociation could work like that?
Well, proponents point to empirical evidence, like brain scans of DID patients. Different alters often show distinct patterns of brain activity. This suggests dissociation isn't just psychological. It has an identifiable physical appearance, an extrinsic look.
Okay, so applying that analogy, our physical bodies and brains, what are they in this view?
They are the extrinsic appearance of the dissociation. The brain isn't producing consciousness, it's what our inner conscious experience looks like from an outside perspective. The boundary of our dissociation, our alter, appears physically as the body-brain.
So brain activity correlates with experience because it is the external view of that experience.
That's the core claim. It's not causing it, it is its appearance. This avoids the hard problem of generation.
And this neatly sidesteps a combination problem too, right? The issue panpsychism faces.
Exactly. Panpsychism struggles to explain how tiny bits of consciousness, microconsciousness, combine to form complex, unified experiences like ours, macroconsciousness. Analytical idealism avoids this because it starts with the unified whole cosmic consciousness and explains individuals through dissociation, a top-down process.
Okay, and what about perception? If the physical world is a dashboard, what are we actually perceiving?
This connects to ideas like Donald Hoffman's interface theory. What we perceive, colors, sounds, shapes, textures, aren't necessarily accurate depictions of the underlying reality, whatever that is. In this case, processes within cosmic consciousness.
So they're more like icons, useful fictions.
Useful, yes. Evolution gave us perceptions that guide adaptive behavior, promoting survival and reproduction, fitness, not necessarily perceptions that show us the truth of the underlying reality. The desktop interface helps us use the computer effectively without needing to see the transistors and code.
So the qualities we experience are evolved representations, tuned for fitness, not veridicality.
That's the idea. The redness of an apple is a useful signal, but it's not reflecting some inherent redness property out there. It's representing some aspect of the underlying reality in a way that's useful for us as organisms.
Okay, fascinating. So we have Vedanta's picture and analytical idealism picture. Now, let's put them side by side. Where do the resonances really jump out?
Well, the most obvious one, I think, is between Brahman and cosmic consciousness. Both Vedanta and analytical idealism seem to point towards a single, unified, fundamental ground of reality that is essentially conscious or experiential in nature.
So Brahman, as Satchidananda, finds a sort of modern echo in this idea of a foundational cosmic awareness.
It certainly seems that way. For someone trying to grasp Brahman, thinking about it as a universal field of consciousness might be a helpful, contemporary, conceptual bridge.
And what about Maya? Vedanta's concept of illusion or appearance.
That maps quite compellingly onto the dashboard or interface metaphor in analytical idealism, doesn't it? The idea that the world we perceive, the world of separate objects and phenomena, isn't the ultimate reality, but a representation, a kind of useful illusion.
So the mistake in both frameworks is taking the representation of the dashboard, the Maya-created world, as the fundamental truth itself.
Exactly. And Vedanta's concept of Adhyaropa, superimposition.
Right, the world superimposed on Brahman.
That aligns almost perfectly with the analytical idealist's claim that the physical world is superimposed on, or is the extrinsic appearance of, fundamental consciousness. The direction of explanation is the same. Consciousness is primary.
Okay, that's a strong parallel. What about the individual Atman and its identity with Brahman, Tat Tvam Asi?
If we think about analytical idealism's dissociated alters within cosmic consciousness.
You're saying the Atman-Brahman identity could be seen as analogous to an alter realizing its true nature as part of the larger cosmic consciousness.
Precisely. The feeling of being a separate individual, the ego, could be seen as the very effect of the dissociative boundary. Vedanta's Avidya, the ignorance of our unity with Brahman, looks very much like the condition of being a dissociated alter unaware of its source.
So realization, in Vedantic terms, would be like overcoming that dissociation, seeing through the illusory separation.
That seems like a very plausible interpretation within this comparative framework.
And those Vedantic illustrations we discussed, the mirage, the mother of pearl.
They seem to resonate strongly with the idealist view that our perceptions can be misleading about the underlying reality. Both the mirage and the silver are appearances that don't reflect the true nature of the desert or the shell. Analytical idealism essentially scales that idea up to the entire perceived cosmos.
It suggests the world looks one way, but its fundamental reality is something else entirely consciousness.
Yes. And Vedanta's focus on realizing the self, the Atman, as distinct from the body and mind, that also fits well, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, if the body and brain are just the extrinsic appearance of the alter's inner life and its boundary, then identifying with the body-brain is mistaking the appearance for the real self, which is the conscious experience itself, ultimately rooted in cosmic consciousness.
So both traditions encourage a shift in identification away from the physical appearance towards the underlying consciousness.
It seems that way. Also, consider the methods. Vedanta emphasizes direct experience, intuition, meditation, jnana to realize Brahman.
Right.
Analytical idealism, while using logic and argument, fundamentally grounds itself in the undeniable reality of subjective experience. Consciousness is the starting point, the primary datum.
So both in their own ways, give primacy to consciousness or direct knowing over, say, purely sensory or materialistic views.
There's a definite resonance there in prioritizing the subjective pole of reality.
Now, we should probably be careful not to just equate them entirely. Vedanta is a whole spiritual path, with ethics, practices.
Absolutely. That's a crucial caveat. Vedanta offers a soteriology, a path to liberation, involving discipline practice, ethical living, devotion in some schools, things that aren't necessarily part of analytical idealism as a purely metaphysical theory presented in these sources.
So analytical idealism might provide a metaphysical framework that aligns with Vedanta, but it doesn't encompass the whole spiritual system.
Exactly. The conceptual alignment on the nature of reality is what's striking, but they operate on different levels in some respects. Analytical idealism is primarily concerned with ontology, what fundamentally exists. Vedanta is ontology plus a path to realizing it.
One last potential connection. What about the unconscious? Vedanta talks about latent impressions, vasanas, samskaras, shaping our experience from beneath the surface.
That's a really interesting point. How might analytical idealism conceive of the unconscious?
Well, if everything is fundamentally consciousness, maybe the unconscious is simply phenomenal consciousness that isn't accessible to our current state of metacognition. Parts of the cosmic mind, or deeper layers within our own dissociated alter, that we aren't currently aware of being aware of.
That fits the framework. It wouldn't be non-conscious stuff, but rather dissociated or momentarily unattended streams of experience. And those could function very much like vasanas or samskaras, underlying currents within consciousness, influencing the foreground of our experience.
So these ancient ideas of latent mental tendencies might find a place within this modern idealist framework as unattended or dissociated aspects of the universal conscious field.
It's a plausible mapping, suggesting that even the concept of deeper mental influences can potentially be accommodated without resorting to a non-conscious substrate.
Okay, so pulling this all together, it seems there's a remarkable conceptual resonance. Vedanta's non-dual Brahman, the illusory nature of Maya, the identity of Atman and Brahman. They all find potential parallels in analytical idealism's cosmic consciousness, the dashboard metaphor, and the idea of dissociated alters.
It really does suggest a convergence, doesn't it? Ancient contemplative wisdom and modern philosophical analysis, prompted partly by challenges from science itself, perhaps pointing towards a similar consciousness-centric view of reality.
It's definitely an aha moment seeing these threads connect across centuries and cultures. The idea that reality is fundamentally mind or experience, not inert matter.
It challenges the default assumptions of materialism in a profound way, using different toolkits but arriving at a surprisingly similar place.
So the final thought for our listeners, maybe. How does considering this idealist perspective, whether through Vedanta's lens or analytical idealisms, shift your view? Your view of yourself, your daily experiences, the very nature of the world around you?
Yeah, what new questions does it spark? If the world is the appearance of thought, or if we are expressions of a single cosmic mind, what does that imply about our potential, our connections, and the ultimate nature of what we call reality?
Definitely something to ponder. It certainly invites a deeper look into both of these rich traditions.
Indeed, a lot more to explore there.